Please welcome the incredible Aaron Bonk.
This is Mr. York once again, and with me today is performer Aaron Bonk. And I want to thank you so much for being with me today. And I'm going to let you do an introduction of yourself and what it is you do, because I feel like you're going to do a better job of explaining it. I do want to start by saying that you are one of the best performers that I've ever seen, and it's a real treat for me to have you here today. On top of that, I should point out that you are also a Guinness World Record holder in many different ways. So I'll let you talk about the specifics on that.
Okay. My name is Aaron Bonk. I am a whip artist. And danger comedy juggler. I work primarily the cruise ship industry and the Renaissance Fair circuit. I have set 4 Guinness World Records, all with whip cracking, some with juggling, and I still currently hold on to 3 of those. I planned on taking the one I've lost back last spring in California at the Renaissance Fair, but that didn't happen.
Let's start back in the beginning. One of the things that screwed up this interview today is I kind of forgot that you're in Florida. Were you born in Florida, or were you raised there? Did you go to high school there?
No, I was born in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And when I was 5 years old, my family moved to Cleveland, Ohio. So I grew up in Cleveland. At the age of 33, I moved down here to Clearwater Beach, Florida.
It's a great place to be, and it's a lot warmer than up where you grew up, for sure, right?
Yes, it is. And that was the primary factor for me, is I don't really like winter. I don't like being cold at all. You know, I love doing stuff outside and practicing and training outside a lot. And, I could only do that for, maybe half the year up in Cleveland. So that's a big part of why I moved south.
One of the things that our students always want to know is, did you enjoy high school? Did you do well? Were you a good student?
I did very well in high school. I was pretty much a straight A student. I took a lot of honors classes. I wasn't very popular. Had a few close friends. At that time, I was also learning how to juggle and play guitar in my own life, separate from high school. I went to a very sports-oriented high school, but it wasn't really heavy in the arts. I was the only juggler in my high school.
Well, that sort of naturally leads to our next question, which is, you have a very physically demanding job. You're obviously in great shape.
Yeah! So heavy. Thank you. That's nice. I'm so glad all 8 of you showed up today. Tell you what.
Did you play a lot of sports in high school, and did any of that sort of lead to something in college later on?
Actually, at that time, and for a good part of my life, I was very uncoordinated for a long time. And even when I'm off the clock in my daily life, I'm kind of a klutz. When I was younger, I was terrible at sports. I couldn't catch or throw a ball to save my life. I ran cross country and track for 2 years. It wasn't until later in life when I really started getting into juggling and this as a career that I started working out a lot more. Especially when I started working on cruise ships, it's, there's a lot of downtime as a performer, and there's a free gym right upstairs, so started eating better and really starting to enjoy physical activity a lot more. And also working out in the gym and getting myself in better shape helps me do a better show. Because as you mentioned, I do a very, very physical performance. It comes across in the show, and I'm out of breath or need to take a moment, and that's never a good look on stage. So hitting the gym, weight training, cardio training helps me be a better performer. And so it all kind of feeds into itself.
So you did really well in high school. They weren't known for performance, But at some point, you had to start performing. Can you tell us what got you involved with whips in general, or juggling, or just kind of how all that sort of came about?
When I was 11, I learned the basic 3-ball juggling routine. But the first thing I like to do is called 4-ball juggling, and occasionally it gets a round of applause. Good. My mom went back to college to get her nursing degree. And in part of her program, she had to take some phys ed electives, and she took a racquetball class. I know this seems way out, like where's he going with this? But the racquetball instructor taught all the students the basic 3-ball juggling pattern. It's where everything begins, because it helps develop coordination. It's been shown to help create new pathways in the brain, but it also helps develop coordination. So people think, oh, I can't juggle, I'm not coordinated. Well, I wasn't either, but it helps develop that sort of thing. You know, you practice, you get better. She learned from her racquetball class, and then she took a speech class and had to give a speech on how to do something. So she gave it on how to juggle, and I was her guinea pig. So, you know, I listened to her speech and practiced the techniques, and that's when I first learned how to do it. Yeah, at the time, I was religious, and there were a new priest came to our church, Father Michael Gotti, and he was into clown ministry, as fun as that sounds. But he was more of on the juggling side of things than necessarily all the face paint and clowning and all that. But he was a great juggler, and he was really good at teaching stuff. And, you know, I was this young kid who was interested in juggling. And so it came to be that once a week on Sunday nights, we'd get together in the school gymnasium and practice juggling. We'd throw stuff at each other, and he would lend me VHS tapes of jugglers, because that's how you learned back then. There wasn't really an internet. Never really thought it would be my job. I'm still by nature an introvert. You know, when I'm at work, I'm a professional extrovert, and I can do the thing and be the guy on stage. But in my personal life, I'm still very introverted, you know, by nature. And when I was younger, it was even worse. I was very shy. I was afraid to talk in front of people. Anytime I had to give a speech in class, I'd be sweating and shaking and nervous, and was terrible at talking to people I didn't know. And I decided to do the school talent show as a juggler, you know, just try to overcome my nerves and do it. And I found that I really liked performing. I loved getting the crowd to clap and have a good time and smile. And I was like, wow, this is really kind of a cool thing. So that's when the bug started to get into my head that maybe I'd like to be a performer. I was also learning to play music at the time, and for a long time I thought I was going to be a musician. Yeah, but that was when it started to sort of hit me, like, yeah, I really like this performing thing. Maybe this being shy thing isn't going to work so well. And it was a conscious choice to know that if I was going to do this, I couldn't be that. So I was like, well, I have to get over being shy. And from then it began a long process of me making myself just go up and talk to people I don't know, and putting myself in what would be uncomfortable social situations to just deal with it. And, you know, maybe not all the time, but it was a conscious choice that I had to get over that to some extent. And it was a long road, and but here we are now.
You mentioned that you were a great student, and obviously you could have gone to a number of different universities. Did you end up going to college, or did you find that was not something you wanted to do?
I had a partial scholarship, and I went to for 2 years to the University of Dayton in Dayton, Ohio, and I was undeclared for both of those years. But one of the defining factors of why I wanted to go there is they had a juggling club. That was a thing. So I had a great time at college. I learned a bunch of things, and a bunch of things that pertain to my career now. I took voice lessons. I took guitar and bass lessons. I took photography and philosophy of art. I studied a lot of things that I enjoyed doing, but that really had an artistic leaning, maybe growing into being who I am, giving me more of an artistic eye, and also appreciation for music and how to use my voice on stage. But yeah, I took all kinds of great things. I still wasn't entirely sure that I wanted to be a performer at that point. Maybe thought it was something I'd like to do on the side, but was figuring I would probably have some kind of day job at some point, but I couldn't figure out what that was. Decided at that point that it was a pretty expensive place to be, to not know what I wanted to do. So I took about a year off and, worked at a music store and thought about what I wanted to do. And in that time, I really started working on the music side of things. Eventually put out a CD of my own music and played gigs around Cleveland. So I did go to college for a bit, but didn't graduate and didn't really have a lot of focus other than learning some things that I really wanted to learn. So I don't regret my time there. I had a blast and learned some valuable stuff. I did a couple years later in the music thing. I went to the community college near Cleveland called Lakeland Community College, and that was to take specifically sound recording and reinforcement classes, so that I could know how to use a soundboard and amplifiers and record things, and that has helped me immeasurably to be able to bring my own PA system to a gig and have good sound, as opposed to if you watch a performer and their sound isn't dialed in right, their voice is all muddy, it distracts from the performance. So I took about a year of sound reinforcement classes at a community college, and that was really helpful as well. And I still use that knowledge today. And now when I go into a venue where they have a sound guy and a soundboard and a whole sound system set up, I know what I'm talking about, and I can communicate with that guy to ask for what I want. And it makes things a lot easier.
You used what you needed and you got the information you needed that you could then apply later on. So at some point in your story, you went and did this full time. You went through music and did some other things. When did you start actually performing as the artist that you are now?
I left / was fired from my last day job in 2004. I worked at a place for about 5 years it was a carnival and casino supply store. So it kind of tied in with what I do. But what we did was we'd bring carnival and casino games to corporate parties. So, end of the year, Christmas party, you go in, we bring in blackjack tables and craps tables, and we run a fake casino where people, they gamble throughout the night, but not with their money. They get, a stack of chips, and at the end of the night, they use those chips to buy raffle tickets. They win prizes. So it was all fun stuff. So I worked at that company for about 5 years because I would be a dealer for the game. And as the blackjack dealer at an entertainment event, it's not just your job to deal the cards and be stoic. It's your
you had to talk
job
to people and socialize and be fun,
exactly.
perform,
Yeah,
entertain.
you have to entertain these people and interact with them. So I learned quite a lot at that job about doing so. And I had an amazing boss too, who is still a friend of mine to this day. Yeah, in that time, I was starting to work juggling gigs around the area, small things, birthday parties, festivals, where I would just, go and walk around and juggle. He was a really cool boss. He was always encouraging of me building that career while I was there. So it helped a lot that while I was working that job, I could build that. And he eventually started trying to, sell me to his clients. Like, you're getting this company party. Hey, why don't you hire our juggler to come work there as well as part of it? So I owe him so much. His name is John Kopic, and I owe him so much for his support in that time and throughout my entire career, kind of pushing me to do more and be more and be myself. So yeah, 2004 is when I went full time. I'd been working gigs up till then. It's been some ups and downs along the way, but it just started to steadily pick up, and I haven't needed to have a day job since.
You actually were able to do this full time for years up until last year. And you mentioned a little bit about your online presence. A lot of our students, as you can imagine, tend to really want to be YouTubers and have an online presence. We talk a little bit about branding, and you did a really great job of building your brand and selling it for years and doing really well with that. When it came time for COVID a year ago, how did that work out? And can you just share with us what the last year has been like?
On one hand, I guess my hard work really paid off in a number of ways. The year before COVID, was, was by far the best year I've had, financially and career-wise. Up, each year I've been getting better, fortunately, and I put a lot of work in. But 2019 was a stellar year for me. I was able to put some money away and save, and I know I bring that up because I know a lot of people who, when the pandemic hit, when everything shut down, I don't know
There were a lot of people that were not
language.
adequately
Yeah.
prered for what was going to happen, and didn't
That's
have
it.
as much of a
Yes.
nest egg as you did. So
Exactly. And and I'm not rich or anything, but I at least had a little bit of a safety net. So that helped, ease some of the tension. And but yeah, it was a spirit of, what am I going to do? All this work is gone. The Ren fairs just one by one started shutting down. The entire cruise industry just kaput. So yeah, I was looking forward to this next year of some really great gigs and great paychecks, and suddenly it was just all gone. And there was a lot of panic. There was some stress, but at least I knew, I could feed and house myself for a while. I'd be okay. I noticed a lot of other entertainers started doing subscription-based stuff. Accounts where, well, you pay a certain amount, and ostensibly each week or every incrementally, every so often, they would release a video or some bit of material that would for their patrons. And part of me wanted to do that, but also I noticed that a lot of other people who needed that smile, who needed entertainment, who needed some kind of distraction, they were out of work as well, and they weren't making money. And so I didn't really want to close off my best stuff to those people,
right,
because they arguably needed a smile more than the people who were still working. So it was a conscious decision to just start putting up content. I've always tried to put up at least entertaining content or stuff in line with my personal philosophy. And but this was a decision to sort of ramp that up, and really just made a list of all these different types of videos and photo shoots that I wanted to do. And also, with the hard work paying off, throughout the years, I've built a very devoted fan base. I don't have 10,000 followers on any account. I have less than 8,000 on my Instagram, probably about 7,000 on my Facebook. So I'm not like 30,000 followers or 100,000. I don't have a huge internet presence, but because of how people connect with my show, because of how I try to connect with my audience, the people who do follow me online tend to be very devoted to the product that I put out. It's so weird to call it a product. It's just my creative endeavors, but it really is. And so those fans, really, really stepped up and helped take care of me throughout the whole pandemic. Just try to do my best to keep putting out entertaining stuff for them to watch. And when I would announce that another fair is closed, a lot of the fans at that fair would tend to just log in and show some financial love to my accounts. So much of that has come just from building such a devoted fan base and really doing my best to connect with my audience and not just be a nameless, faceless juggler, but to try and have a really unique act, something that not everybody else is doing. That's always been a big part of my philosophy of performance, and my plan is that I don't want to be just, oh, we saw a juggler. I want people to know we saw Aaron Bonk, and he's doing stuff that nobody else does. Whether you like it or not, whether you like my show or dislike my show, I don't think you can argue that I'm doing anything anybody else is doing.
I've never seen anyone that does anything quite like what you do. It really is a very small percentage of people that are doing anything even close to what you're doing. Fortunately for you, which is good.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
One of the most exciting things I think that happened this year, you were on America's Got Talent.
Yes, it was.
I saw in a conversation, it was like the virtual version of it.
Right. So I had been in talks with one of their producers a couple months before, back in like October of 2019. And we've been talking and, what acts can you do? And he'd taken some ideas to his higher ups, and, they're and ostensibly I wasn't really, they decided to pass. I wasn't really supposed to be on the show. And as soon as lockdown hit, they were in the middle of filming for the season, and they had to change their entire format. They couldn't have the big audiences, they couldn't have the judges, and they couldn't do stuff in person. So that producer got in touch with me and he said, hey, we have to shift everything to online stuff for now. We're shifting formats. We're doing everything over Zoom. And I think this is an opportunity for your act to really shine. He's like, so, what are you doing next week? I'm like, nothing. Nobody's doing anything.
Right.
I'm not doing, yeah, I'll do whatever you want me to do. So over Zoom, I got to interact with Simon and Heidi and Howie. Yeah, so I got to do the audition for that, and the judges were all for it, and I got a lot of great quotes out of it. But then once they got back into the studio and started doing the live shows, they opted not to bring me on to go further into it, which, a bit of a bummer, but considering I wasn't supposed to be on at all. Yeah, at least I was kind of involved in America's Got Talent season 15.
That was really cool. In fact, Howie Mandel really loved your act, and I thought maybe if they were going to go in that direction, but we all know that Hollywood's very difficult and very fickle. So it's really cool that you actually got a chance to even show your stuff to people like that. And we hope that in the future, maybe you'll get another opportunity like that. Do you want to talk about your haircut real quick and how you decided on
that? Not really. It's a couple of things. One, it's just it's a style choice that's different. Nobody else does this. It's, blatantly off center. People ask me all the time, like, oh, it's why is it off center? Hey, my first answer is usually that symmetry is for cowards, and that is an artistic philosophy I have. I originally very, very type A person. Everything has to be very centered, and when I studied philosophy of art in college, actually, I learned a bit about Japanese art and different philosophies of art where you can achieve balance without symmetry. And that really struck me. I strive against my own nature to accept and deal with. And that's the whole philosophical side of it. The other side of it is just that nobody does this. It's a unique style that I haven't seen anybody else do. And it helps stand out as a performer, as an artist. And a little off-center mohawk. Just to do my own thing, my own style. And also, most hairstyles are asymmetrical. You just don't realize because there's hair on both sides. But if your hair is parted on the side, that's asymmetry.
For sure.
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much for your time. I know that they got a lot out of it because you are somebody that's very different, and a lot of our students do not go down one path. And so we want to show people all the different options that they have. So we super appreciate you speaking with us today.
I just want to say thanks so much for having me. It is an honor to be able to talk about that very thing, because I believe in that firmly. I believe in, if something's calling you, or if you have this drive to do something different, do your own thing, you don't have to follow the path that society tells you always do. You put in the hard work, you put in the time, you put in the drive and the discipline, but you don't have to do that standard, this is how things go, do the thing. Break out, find what you love to do, and work at it like it's your job, and eventually it will be.
For Chaparral Middle School, I'm Mr. York. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. My pleasure.